Hi, three things for you today. One, breaking news. ICE is detaining U.S. citizens. Maybe that doesn't surprise you, but it should, because ICE's role is to detain and deport or enforce immigration laws to those that are here illegally, not those that are American citizens. Second, what documents should you have with you in order to avoid being detained? Why do you need it? How can you protect yourself? That's the second thing we're going to talk about. And third, why does doing your background search matter? Why is it important to have certain documents on you in the event of travel or even going from home to work? Why do you need it? Why is your background important before you apply for anything? These are the three things that we're going to talk today.
Calificas para ser legal, quieres saber, solo llama al abogado Andrés Mejer.
Breaking news, ICE detaining U.S. citizens. Look, in the past 7 years, over 1,480 U.S. citizens were detained and then released. There were over 8,000 claims of U.S. citizenship that ICE investigated. About 25% of them, or just under 1,500, were actually U.S. citizens and were ultimately let go. Now, to be fair, this is only a fraction of the over 100,000 people that are detained every year. So as a percentage, those numbers are very low. The problem is sometimes it takes days, weeks, or months, or in some cases, years to fix. And when someone is deprived of their liberty, when they're in jail for weeks, months, or years, the fact that less than 2% of all arrests are incorrect doesn't help them at all. Now, I'm going to give three different examples of U.S. citizens that were detained by ICE. The first and the most in the news right now is Francisco Galicia. He was detained on June 27 this year in Texas. He lives in Edinburgh, right on the corner of Texas and Mexico. Him, his younger brother, Marlon, who was 17, and a bunch of guys were traveling to Houston by car for a soccer tryouts for college. And along the way, they were pulled over by Customs Border Patrol just within the 100 miles of the border with Mexico. And he had on him his birth certificate, his social security, his driver's license. And despite that, he was detained by ICE for almost a month. Why? He also had a Mexican visa indicating that he was born in Mexico. And so here's what happened. He was born in the U.S., his family moved back to Mexico. His brother Marlon was born. For the next 10 years, they were in Mexico. Then they moved back to the U.S. He had been in the U.S. for about a year or two. His English was more Spanglish than anything else. He understands more English than he speaks. He clearly does not speak very well. He tried to tell the ICE officer he was a U.S. citizen, and he had documentation to prove it. Now, I understand the confusion. We have two conflicting documents. One says he's a U.S. citizen. One says he is not, but it doesn't take 27 days to correct that. He insisted he was a U.S. citizen, but by his account, he was treated horrifically. He lost 26 pounds in 27 days. He was detained for 27 days, but only 23 days was in this particular detention. During that time, he was not allowed to shower, not a single time. He was given wipes to clean himself. Very sad situation. Now, he was only ultimately released when family hired counsel. The attorney provided the same documents that ICE already had in their possession from day one. It does not take 27 days to figure out if a copy of birth certificate is legitimate or not. But in this case, apparently it did. Second case, not as extreme as Francisco, Sergio Cabrillo. He was detained at a parking lot in Home Depot in July of 2016 when Homeland Security showed up. Sergio was then 39 years old. He was a landscaper, fluent English speaker, had lived the past 20 years in the United States. He gained his citizenship in 1994. He was underage, and his father naturalized. When his father naturalized, he became a U.S. citizen. He had a certificate of citizenship and he had a passport. So he told the agents, "What are you doing with me? I'm a U.S. citizen." He said it repeatedly. They didn't care. They detained him. He was detained for almost a week. The same day, his son went to the detention center to present his U.S. passport and certificate of citizenship, and the ICE agents would not accept it. He had to go hire an attorney to do the very same thing, and then he was ultimately released. He sued for false imprisonment, got a $20,000 settlement for this mistake. Again, percentage-wise, less than 2% of all detentions actually are U.S. citizens and can prove it successfully. Generally about 8,000 or so, in the past 7 years, there have been about 8,000 claims of U.S. citizenship. About 20% of them, 1,480, they were American citizens and ultimately were released. But some things become very complicated. Imagine Sergio's situation. Imagine he didn't have a passport. Imagine his father passed away. Or, his parents separated after he turned 18. He went to college and he never saw his father again. And he doesn't know where he is. And he doesn't know when he naturalized. So these cases can become very complicated and very difficult to prove. The moral of the story is, if you have a path for citizenship, do it now. If you're a green card holder, apply for citizenship right away. Don't wait. Don't let these situations happen to you. Francisco couldn't really defend himself because he didn't speak the language. Sergio could. And what happened? That the officer made a mistake and spelled his last name with a P instead of with a B. Didn't find his citizenship. Didn't believe him. Well, he was a U.S. citizen. And he's not the one who typed in the name incorrectly. The officer was. But he's the one that had to spend a week in jail, in detention. Yeah, he got $20,000 for it, but I don't know. If you pay me $1 million, maybe I'll go to jail for a week. But for $20,000, money's money, but my life's more important. Davino Watson, talk about long time in jail. He was born in Jamaica, U.S. citizen. Today, he became a U.S. citizen when his father naturalized and he was a minor. So he was convicted in New York of drug possession and distribution. He served his jail time. After finishing, he was interviewed by an ICE officer. Instead of being released, ICE took him into custody and put him in removal proceedings. And he told them, listen, I'm a U.S. citizen. My father, Hopton Ulando Watson, lives in New York. I was underage. When he naturalized, I naturalized. Now, the officer did not find Hopton Ulando Watson living in New York. Instead, he found Hopton Livingston Watson, who lived in Connecticut and was not a U.S. citizen. Now, Davino, when he was charged with the crime, he was given a public defender. The state paid for his attorney to defend him. In immigration court, you don't have that right. If you want an attorney, you have to pay for it yourself. You're not given one. So he went in front of the judge. He said, listen, I'm a U.S. citizen. The judge didn't believe him and ordered him deported. He appealed to the Board of Immigration Appeals, who sustained, same thing. They said, nope, we don't believe you, you're going to get deported. He goes to the district court. Now he's in federal court, and he's given an attorney for free to represent him, and that attorney was able to get ICE to redo the initial search. Not Hopton Ulando, not Hopton Livingston, but Hopton Ulando, who is in fact a U.S. citizen. The moment he pointed that out, he was released. 3.5 years in jail, above his sentence, because he didn't have an attorney and because he didn't know what to do. So Davino did not even finish high school. He didn't have much of an education. I'm sure that prevented his ability to argue his case effectively by himself. Had he had counsel earlier, chances are he would have gotten out earlier. It's not fair, but unfortunately those are the circumstances. 3.5 years. Now, he won a judgment of $82,500. $82,000 is not a lot of money when you're talking about 3.5 years of my life. But to make it worse, an appellate court took it away because he ran the statute of limitations. He should have filed his claim while he was in jail. He didn't. So because he didn't, he lost that right. And that settlement was that award was taken from him.